Hello, Pop Gus here. How are you today? Let's get up close and personal. I have a few things to share with you today. I'm really kind of excited about it. Looking forward to it. Uh, Number one, I'd like to read a poem. I used to work in a prison, and I used to talk to a lot of prisoners, men, because they were the ones that I was given charge over. And so I learned things about their lives, and actually, there was people there who actually had murdered other people, which is not a great thing, terrible thing actually. But everybody makes mistakes, and even in the mistakes, I befriended quite a few people. Now, I didn't find out about the crimes they had done because that wasn't a professional thing to do. But sometimes you hear things, and anyway, I was talking to one fellow one day. And we were talking about the Lord. And for some reason, he just said something, and it stuck in my mind. He said, and I don't know why, I can't even remember the context. He said, he reached from cross to cross, or he reached across. And we were talking about Jesus. And instantly, I had this thought of the thief that hung on the cross next to Jesus. There were actually two uh, criminals that were put on crosses on each side, one on each side of Jesus. One repented, one knew that he had done wrong and was sorry for it. The other was just mad that he had gotten caught. And isn't that the way we usually are? We're upset because we got caught doing something instead of upset that we could have hurt the one who created us and loved us. In any case, as soon as he said that, something came to me, and I just picked up my pen and a piece of paper, and I wrote this poem down. And so I'm going to share it with you now. So this is an original poem written by me, Pop Gus. Okay, and it's called "The Thief on the Cross," and it starts out: He reached from cross to cross to save me where I hung, the innocent to the guilty. It seemed my song was sung. In my despair I cried out to the one I knew did no wrong. And in that moment I understood he was reaching for me all along. What love was in those eyes that day as he peered at me in my loss. I knew right then and there that he'd reached and crossed across. I was guilty. How very true. My sins had finally caught me. But when I looked into his eyes, I knew he had sought me. He drew me unto himself after long years of desperation. I surrendered right then and there to my Savior, my reconciliation. I had heard that he had said, "Take up your cross and follow me." But I didn't see until that day that his plan included even me. Such acceptance on those trees as we hung separate but together, between the heavens and the earth, I locked in his gaze forever. No complaints or murmuring I heard from this King of glory. Though he suffered as he died, forgiveness was his great story. I didn't understand till many years later. This servant had counted the cost. And oh, the day he looked at me and reached from cross to cross. Ah, oh, I'm glad I was able to read that to you. I've read it to my family members. I never read it to people I don't know well. I never read it aloud to anybody else. Uh, well, that's my poem. That's the beginning. I'd like to share something practical with you. Uh, it's been said that I'm a friend to millennials. And sometimes it seems that millennials have been so busy learning about things with their smartphones and computers and facts and data and so on that they pass over practical stuff. So I want to share something with you practical. Do you ever check the oil in your car? Now, I know today's cars are very good, very seldom use any oil. But if they do, if your car ever uses oil up, it can be a very expensive thing to run low out or out of oil. So Pop Gus wants you to know how to do that. Underneath your hood, there's a clip that holds the hood tight so that when you're going 80 mile an hour, the hood doesn't fly up in front of you. I speak that from experience. In the old days, they didn't have those extra clips to hold the hood down, and sometimes you'd forget. And oh, what an exciting thing it was to be driving down the street and have your whole vision of the road blocked out. Yeah, that's happened to me. But anyway, underneath your dashboard, as you sit at your steering wheel, on the left side, you reach your left hand underneath. Usually there's a little handle, and it might be marked hood. It might show a picture of the hood of the car, the front of the car. In any case, you pull it, and you'll hear it click up in front of the car. Then you get out, and you search underneath because now it's a little bit loose, and you find a little toggle or a switch or something to push side to side or up and down, which loosens the hood so it can come up. The hood then comes up when you find that little toggle or whatever, that little clip. And maybe the hood will stay up on its own, or maybe the hood needs a prop. If you look along the side, usually on the left side, there'll be a rod that's fitted into a rubber grommet, a rubber hold down. And you pull that out of there and you pick it up, and you'll see a hole in the side of the hood where the end goes, and that'll keep the hood propped up. Make sure it's securely in there. You don't want the hood coming down on your head. That's a painful deal. You look around on the motor and you look for a little ring or a little handle that says oil or motor oil or engine oil, something like that. And what you do is you push that all the way down. Now, let me tell you, the best time to check your oil is in the morning before you start your car. Or if you've been at work, after a day of work, you pop the hood and you check it then. If the motor's been sitting for hours, it's the best time to check the oil, because then you get a true reading. Now, if the car's been sitting all night and you've done what I said and you lifted the hood, found the oil stick, it's called an oil stick, a dip stick, it dips down into the motor. When you push it tightly all the way down in to make sure it's been tight, and then pull it out. And if you look at the end of the oil stick, you'll see there's markings. And if the top of the mark is there and the oil is up to the top, you're good. You have enough oil in the car. However, if on that oil stick there's markings, you'll see a line, and then you'll see another line, and then you'll see little lines crossing. If it's all the way down to the line that's maybe an inch down, that means you need 1 quart of oil. You don't want to overfill. You never want to overfill your oil. Okay, that's not a good thing either. But if it's halfway down to that mark, it means that you need a 1/2 quart of oil. Now, if you just need a 1/2 quart of oil, it's not the end of the world to drive somewhere and get a quart of oil and put half of it in. However, if you need a quart or more than that, even 2 quarts, that's fairly important, and you should add oil to your car. Okay? So then, after you've replaced the dipstick and you know how much you need to put in the car, you look for another cap that says oil on it. Engine oil, motor oil, something to do with oil. And you loosen that cap, you turn it lefty-loosey, turn it counterclockwise, and it'll click and pop and make noises, and then it comes loose. And you'll take the quart of oil that you've bought. Well, they're about $4 a quart nowadays, quite expensive. And you add as much as you think you need. If it's, like I say, if it's halfway down to that next line, it's a 1/2 quart. And if you look in the side of the oil can, you'll see there's a clear spot. And it'll tell you when you're half empty or half full. Okay? Pour it carefully into that hole. Don't pour it on the motor. And if you do happen to spill some on the motor, you'll notice that the motor, when you start running it, and when it gets hot, the motor will smoke a little bit until that oil is burned off. So if you happen to fill the oil and you fill the oil in the motor and you spill some, and you notice some smoking, just bear with it. It'll burn off. It'll burn off, and then you'll be all right. Okay? So if your motor starts smoking, oh, something's wrong with it. No, it's okay. It's okay. Anyway, make sure you put the dipstick back in the spot, and make sure you tighten that oil cap back on. You'll hear it click. Let it click 2 or 3 times, and you know it's nice and tight. Okay? All right, that's the practical. Now we're moving on to the spiritual. You know, uh, in the Bible, in the Garden of Eden, do you know where that is? Right in the beginning of Genesis, the first book of the Bible. God puts the man and the woman that he created into the Garden of Eden. It was a perfect place. It had everything they needed to live, to thrive, to multiply, to subdue the earth. God said, multiply and subdue the earth. In other words, rule. Rule over the earth. When God created man, he created us to live forever. That's why when you get a cut, you'll notice in a few days it'll scab, and in a few days later it'll heal, and a few days later you never even knew it happened. Because God put immune systems in us and healing systems in us, and we were designed to live forever. So, we shorted that process by eating from the forbidden tree. There was a tree in the middle, there were 2 trees in the midst of the Garden of Eden. This perfect place. God would come in the cool of the day. That's like early morning. That's the coolest part of the day. And he would walk with Adam and talk with Adam and Eve and converse with them and love them and show them things that he's done, and teach them, and just have wonderful times together, talking, walking. You ever do that with a friend? You just talk and walk, and maybe on the beach. You just talk, and you talk about everything. Just go on and on and on. Well, that's what God wanted to do with us. That's really all He ever wanted to do with us, because He just loves us. He created us with love. He created us with a dream in His heart. And as He said to Adam and Eve, here it is. It's your garden. Take care of it. Groom it. Cut the grass if you need to. Pluck the trees, but don't touch one tree. One tree in the garden is called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So you're not allowed to touch that. That's my tree. I give you everything else. The whole earth is yours. But that one tree, don't touch it. For in the day that you touch it, and not touch it, but in the day that you eat of its fruit, very clearly said, the day that you eat of that tree, you will die. So, we all know the story. The enemy came in the form of a snake. He wrapped around that tree, and Eve went walking by the tree a little too close one day. And he hissed out at her, "Has God said?" Did God say something? He engaged her in a conversation. And his whole plan was to seduce her into breaking God's rule. Terrible thing. But when you take a holy, holy God, a perfect God, and He tells you to do something, and you don't do it, you've made a big mistake. As understated as God is, He simply said, "Of that tree you shall not eat." All the other gardens have at it, including the tree of life. You may eat of that tree. Okay. So anyway, Adam and Eve did the unthinkable and ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And oh, what a change there was. As soon as they disobeyed God, as He said, in that day you will die. Well, they didn't die right then, but in that day they began to die. It took almost 1,000 years for Adam to die. He lived to be literally 912 years old from that day. 912, and then he did die. But the Bible also says in other areas that one day is as 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years as one day to Him. So you can make the argument and say, okay, the 1,000 years is as one day, and He said, in that day. In other words, before that day is over, you will die. But in any case, death came into mankind in that moment of time when they disobeyed and ate from that tree. Now, what do you mean by the knowledge of good and evil? Well, think about it. What do you see on TV? What do you think about a lot of times during the day? Who's right? Who's wrong? Who did something bad? Who did something that seems bad turned out good? Who's doing right? Who's doing wrong? You know, I'm 70 years old, actually 71. And I remember years ago when you watched television, it was just silly little entertainment. Nowadays, the entertainment, a lot of the entertainment, are these shows with the judge There's even one show I've seen with three judges, and they all collaborate on issues to find out who's done right and who's done wrong. There's Judge Judy. I can't name them all. There's a whole list of judges, all trying to figure out good, evil, good, evil, evil, good. Who did right, who did wrong. And that's the whole push on those shows. Who's right and who's wrong. Who did wrong to this person, who took their rent money, and all sorts of situations that they present. But constantly people are trying to figure out which is good and which is evil. And if you think about it, now you don't have enough time on earth to maybe have seen this, maybe you do, but over the years, there's been a constant sort of downward spiral of trying to figure out who's good, who's evil, who's right, who's wrong, who's on the right side, who's on the left side, who's on the good guy's side, who's on the bad guy's side. The Russians are bad, the Americans are good, and on and on and on it goes. I'm not saying the Russians are bad and the Americans are good. I'm just saying this is what we've been seeing for many years. If you look at any soap opera, there's always good guys, bad guys. Any old westerns, there's good guys and bad guys. You're constantly trying to figure out good and evil. It's a real battle of the mind to figure it out. And I can see now, and we can see now, if we look at this, why God did not want us to ever touch or eat from that tree. Number one, he said not to, and that's good enough. But Father God says, just do it. Okay. But if you look now, you can see the reason. It is wearing humankind out. Wars have been fought over good and evil. The evil Nazis came on the scene. They killed 6 million Jews and millions of Christians and other unwanted people. There was just obviously bad, obviously evil. There was Stalin. Stalin killed many millions of his people. Obviously wrong, bad people. Wars. Millions of people have been lost in war over who's good and who's evil, who's right and who's wrong. Mankind is being ground down by the notion of good and evil, by the quest to find out who's right and who's wrong. Okay, so I know that's a pretty serious matter. I understand it's a pretty sobering concept that I've presented today, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless. Why would God say don't eat from that tree? Don't partake of that? I mean, it really makes sense when you start to think about it, and especially if you have some years on the earth. You've seen the difference. You've seen how things used to be quite simple in the old, what I call the old days. But anyway, let's understand that. Let's understand that. And also, if you ever feel that God is telling you to do something, and you really feel it's God, and you know in your knower, there's a place inside of you that connects with God. There is. He put it there. He knows. Now, it may be a little bit difficult sometimes to bring that to a place where we can actually hear what God is saying to us. But it's in there. I guarantee you. There's a place in you that only God and touch that only God can speak to you. Okay? And He wants to speak to you. He wants to, what I said earlier, He wants to walk with you in the cool of the day. Sometimes I get up early in the morning and I'll walk with God in the cool of the day. I may sit in my chair. I may sit on my porch. But I'll be communing with God and walking with God. And it's in the cool of the day in the early morning. So I encourage you, let that place in you open up to God. And let that place, you can even pray and say, Lord, I want you to speak to me. Would you speak to me? And see what happens. He's just longing to have time with you, to speak to you, to talk to you, to know you, and for you to know Him, especially for you to know Him. God's nothing like we think. God's nothing like we've been told. God is so much more wonderful. He's a great person, though He's spirit. But anyway, He has a personality. Oh, does He have a personality? Anyway, it's been nice talking to you. I hope you understand what I'm saying and what I'm trying to get across. So I'll see you next time. This is Pop Gus signing out. Bye-bye.